Good evening and welcome to the Environment and Planning Committee meeting of Monday the 14th of August 2023. I'll declare the meeting open at 7 p.m. I'd like to start by acknowledging the Bidjigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional custodians of all lands, waters and sky in the Georges River area. I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who live, work and meet on these lands. Always was, always will be. Next item is apologies. I don't think we have any apologies for this evening, so we can move on from there. We have no requests to attend via audio visual link. Our notice of live streaming of the committee meeting, staff and public are reminded that this meeting is being recorded for minute taking purposes and is also being webcast live on Council's website in accordance with Section 4 of Council's Code of Meeting Practice. This recording will be made available on Council's website. The Code of Meeting Practice. The order of business is as shown in the agenda, which has been made available. Staff and public are reminded that this meeting is open. Doors to the meeting room are to be left open unless the meeting moves into a closed or confidential session, according to Section 14 of the Code of Meeting Practice. Only if the meeting moves into a closed or confidential session will the public broadcasting of the meeting be suspended. Council's Code of Meeting Practice prohibits the electronic recording of meetings without the express permission of Council. Mobile phones must be turned to silent during the meeting. Disclosures of interest. Do any councillors have any interest to declare this evening? Okay, I'll take that as a no. We have no public participation tonight, and so therefore I'll move to the first item, which will be the confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting, and that was held on 10th of July 2023. If I could call for a mover and a seconder, please.
I'll move that.
Moved by Councillor Borg and seconded by Councillor Marnie. All those in favour? Anyone against? Okay, we'll declare that one carried. Now, we only have one item on the agenda this evening, councillors. It's ENV 028-23, a proposed amendment to voluntary planning agreement for 1 to 5 Tracy Street, Hurstville. And as is our practice, before we call for a mover and a seconder, I'm going to defer to the Director, Ms Bishop, tonight, just to give us an overview of this report. Ms Bishop.
Yes, good evening, councillors. The report in front of you seeks endorsement to do a variation. It's called a deed of variation to the planning agreement that relates to 1 to 5 Tracy Street. The deed, or the variation to the planning agreement, relates to the payment of a monetary contribution in lieu of a commercial floor space, fit out of that floor space and a car park that was in the original deed. Now, just as some background, the development on the site, 1 to 5 Tracy Street, is an 11-storey mixed-use development. It was approved under the former Hurstville Council, and as part of that approval, the council resolved to enter into a deed or a voluntary planning agreement with the owner of the site at the time, and that deed was executed, or the VPA was executed in March 2016. Now, as I said, the VPA included a number of items. One was the dedication of a footpath, the car parking space, the commercial space at 81 square metres, the fit out of that space, and then the public domain adjacent and opposite the site to be embellished. Now, as time has gone on, the site or the building was put into the hands of receivers. That occurred in 2018, and it came to our attention sort of early 2022 that the commercial floor space that was to be dedicated to council, which should have occurred prior to the issue of the occupation certificate, did not occur. The occupation certificate was issued at the end of 2021. So while the site was in receivership, the occupation certificate had been issued, meaning and land, the floor space had not been dedicated to council. the site, the VPA had been breached. So we then, with solicitors, we then were working with the receivers about to ensure we could rectify that breach. So being the breach, being the land being dedicated to council. Now, it wasn't straightforward because the land, that lot, that 81 square metres, had a number of covenants over the site, and of course council wouldn't take an encumbered piece of a lot. It's too risky for us to do that, and the receivers then spent some time getting those caveats removed, which was a difficult process, and my understanding is 2 of them have been removed, but 1 still remains on the site. Anyway, because of complications, issues to resolve the breach, the receivers and council went into some negotiations regarding, instead of the floor space being dedicated to council, that we negotiated the payment of a monetary contribution in lieu of the floor space. So with that process, that was agreed by staff, agreed by the lawyers, and agreed by the receiver. We then needed to find what was the appropriate value of that floor space. A number of valuations were done, both by council and by the receiver, over a number of years, so it sort of varied, and the agreement was reached on $550,000. So what the action to implement this outcome, it is requirement that the original voluntary planning agreement be amended. So that's what the deed of variation is. This report is indicating, as we need to do under the provisions of the Act, is have that deed publicly exhibited. Once that comes off exhibition, the deed can then be, and if there's no comments, no submissions made, the deed can then be executed by the General Manager, and on execution, the payment of the funds are required. Once the payment of the funds are required, you'll note in the report in the last resolution, once those funds have been paid, we will then release the security bonds that currently sit there in our system against the public works, against the commercial space, and against the landscaping works. The cost of preparing this VPA, as per our practice, is covered by the applicant or the receiver in this case, and that is our practice.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bishop. Councillors, do you have any questions of the Director? Councillor Jamieson.
Hi. So could you just, what was the area going to be useful by council? So it was going to be provided.
That through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Jamieson, my understanding that had not been determined yet. Whether it was going to be, that would have been worked out with our property team and our community services team, whether it would be a space for a community use. Usually that's what we would have put in, a community activity, community use, community office, but that had not been determined.
And another question. I'm just a bit, if I've got this right, an occupancy certificate was issued, but part of the criteria was they had to meet the criteria to provide it to council, but that wasn't met and they still got an occupancy certificate.
Well, the site was managed by Certifier. The Certifier released the occupation certificate without meeting the provisions of the VPA or the deed. As indicated in the report, the Certifier has been reported to Fair Trading.
Thanks, Ms. Bishop. Councillors, do we have any further questions on this item? Okay, just before we go to a vote then, we'll put it to a vote. I just would like to acknowledge and thank the council officers for all the work that's gone into this. It's quite a difficult, it must have been a very challenging report and circumstance to resolve it to this particular position that we're in now, and I think a deed of variation is a good outcome. Anyway, we might just put that to a vote then. Ms. McKinley, could we go around the room, please? Sorry, my apologies. I thought we had done that. Would somebody like to move it? Moved by Councillor Jamieson and seconded by Councillor Amber Haber. Sorry, councillors, getting ahead of myself. Okay, now we can go around the room.
Your vote, please, Madam Chair.
For.
Councillor Amber Paperhouse.
For.
Councillor Borg.
For.
Councillor Jamieson.
For.
Councillor Marnie.
For.
Councillor Wang.
For.
That's 6 votes, unanimous.
Thank you. We'll declare that one carried. And as that is the only item on the agenda for tonight, we can close the meeting at 7:11 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for your attendance.